this is Ilina and welcome to another LDRS Creative card video. In this video, we're going to do some creative die cutting. Actually, we're going to do some partial die cutting. We're going to use the potted poinsettia stamp set along with the coordinating die Peace and Joy pattern paper and some LDRS Creative watercolor paper because we're going to do some coloring using Karin BrushmarkerPRO markers. So the size of the watercolor paper is already 4¼ by 5½. As you can see, it fits perfectly onto A2 note card that I've already pre-made beforehand. So let's get started. I will be stamping this large image onto the watercolor paper, and I'll be using my stamp positioning tool and some Raven hybrid ink. We're gonna stamp a few times to have nice and solid impression, and also to let the ink be wet for a little bit longer than stamping once, since we're gonna do some heat embossing using clear embossing powder. So I'm stamping here a couple times, and I'm putting pressure onto my stamp positioning tool using the STAMPendable tool. And I'm repeating the process a few times until I'm satisfied with the final impression. I'm gonna do one more time. I noticed like the ink wasn't solid on a couple spots there. So okay, I'm gonna remove the panel from the stamp positioning tool, and I have here a container full of clear embossing powder. I'll just pour over my image, shake the excess off, and then I will heat set it. So you can see here how that embossing powder is melting. From like matte look, we're getting kind of glossy look. So now I'm going over my pattern paper to pick which pattern I want to use for my background. I decided to go with more subtle pattern and green. I was contemplating between green and red. I decided to go with green since the flowers will be red. Now I'm using my Karin markers to swatch them and decide which I want to use that coordinates best with the paper. So here I'm doing nib to nib technique. I'm using the blending pen that comes in with the brush markers, the Karin Pro brush markers, and I'm watercoloring. I'll hold it for a couple seconds onto the nib of the blender pen, and then I'll just color one leaf at a time, and I will keep doing that for all the leaves. You can also do put color down on your watercolor paper and then use the blender to spread that color. So we're going to use that technique for the flowers. So here I'm just trying to pick which reds I want to use for the poinsettias. I decided to go with lipstick red. And here you can see that I'm laying the color down, and then I'm spreading it with the blending pen. So the blending pen acts like a paintbrush and can spread that color very nicely and to have nice effect there. Next, I'm adding some yellow in the center of the flowers. I just did directly from the marker. We have now left to color the pot, the flower pot, so I decided to go with blue. I'm just swatching some of the blues in my marker set. I decided to go with the darkest blue. And next I just added to half of the plant pot, the flower pot, and then I'm blending it in. And next I'm adding on the other half and blending again everything in. I'm just adding a little bit more to the sides to have a little bit more darker color there. Okay, now we're gonna do that partial die cutting. I want my image to be cut off only the top half. So using my T ruler, I marked where I want that line to be until where we want to cut. So I'm positioning my die on top of the image, securing it with some repositionable tape. And next I'll position it onto my cutting plates. So I have the cutting plate on the bottom, and then I'm putting the second cutting plate on top, lining up the plate. The plate would cover the top part and lining up with that line. So as you can see, we just cut the top part there. Now I'm using my paper trimmer and I cut along that line. Okay, now we can start assembling our card. I'm cutting that pattern paper panel to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the same size as our note card. Okay, now we're gonna start adhering everything together. I'm just adding adhesive tape runner on the back of that pattern paper panel. I'm lining it up. And I noticed it was a little bit longer than 5 1/2, so I'm just trimming that bottom off. So next we're gonna adhere the image. I'm using some foam tape, so I'll cover that entire back using the foam tape. Okay, we have one more spot there. I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna remove the backing of the tape and line it up with the bottom of the note card. Okay, now we just need to add some sentiment. So since I'm already stamping one sentiment and I'm using my stamping positioning tool, I decided to stamp all of the sentiments, cut them all into strips, and then save the ones that I want to use for future projects. So I pick those up with the lid of my stamping tool. I'm stamping a few times using the Watermark and embossing ink. And then I will emboss with white embossing powder. Okay, I think that's good. I'm adding some white embossing powder on top, shaking off the excess. Now we just need to heat set that. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm using my paper trimmer. Those were not stamped straight, so I'm using my paper trimmer to make sure that the strips, the sentiments on the strips are straight also. So I cut those all up and I decided to use the sentiment that says Happy Holidays. And I'll save the rest, the other three, for later use. I'm trimming little strips of that foam tape and adding it on the back. I'm using my T ruler to line that up on top of the potted poinsettia to make sure that it is straight. Okay, I think that's good. Now we're gonna add a few finishing touches. I'm using gold gel pen and I'm adding in the center of the flowers. And then I'm using clear shimmer pen to add some shimmer on the flowers and on the flower pot. So you will see in a second when I did the flower pot, I accidentally did a little mark outside the flower pot. So using the blender pen, I was able to, in a way, erase that. You will see that also in a second. So the little smudge is on the left side. So now I will go with the blender pen and kind of blend it in, kind of erase it off. And with this, our card is finished. So let's take a closer look at the card. You can see all the shimmer here. Thank you so much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you are updated on all of the new content being shared here. Also, please visit our blog for more ideas and more inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye!